Okay, so you've installed Orthanc. You've got it now. That's wonderful. The next step is to configure it. And that is actually usually where most people encounter quite a bit of a difficulty unless you've got a pretty significant IT background. The problem is that configuration in for Orthanc rather is done through a JSON file, so JSON configuration file. And if you haven't had experience in this specific domain, and when you first open it, it just looks like a wall of text and a bunch of brackets. And that's, like I said, that's where most people just kind of give up and leave. But not to worry, we're going to fix it right in this video. So how do you get to configuration? That's the first question to ask oneself. And fortunately for us, it's very simple because we're using a Windows PC in our example. So under Drive C program files, you're going to have a folder called Orthanc server. Here you're going to have a bunch of stuff, but what we're after is the configuration file. So you're going to double click on config and you're going to see a bunch of different JSON files. So different files, but all of them would have the extension of JSON. The one that we're after is called orthanc.json. That's the main file that's going to have configuration available for your specific instance of Orthanc. Now, what's happening here is because these files reside under program files, Windows is actually going to protect them. So even though I could right click and then I can say open with, and what you want here is you want a text editor. So Notepad is what you're after. You can open it and you can view it. But the problem here is that you won't really be able to change it much up until you log in as an administrator. So let's do exactly that. Let's close this off. And then we're going to go to our start menu. And then out here, I am going to go over, I'm going to type in Notepad. And as I'm doing this, there it is. And now I'm going to be able to right click and say run as administrator. Now that's fine. You just have to approve this on your Windows. And then we are going to get an instance of Notepad editor. But of course, we are going to be running this as an administrator. Now, for us, it already knows what to do, and it has already opened orthanc.json. Now, let's take a look at what we have out here. And what we have out here is, especially if you're looking at this for the first time, that's a bit of a madness. You're looking at this going, oh my God, what is this? And yeah, it's quite a bit. And if you're a beginner, it definitely is a lot. The problem here is most of the stuff is not actually your config. The problem here is this orthanc.json file for this specific implementation actually doubles up as instructions for how to configure Orthanc. So quite a bit, quite a lot, and you do have to know basics of JSON. We're going to solve this in the easiest way possible. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to close this for a second, and we are going to rename our existing orthanc.json file. We're going to kill it off effectively, or disable it is perhaps is a better way to say it than kill it off. We're not really going to kill it off. And then we're going to create a brand new file, orthanc.json, which is going to be used for configuration. And I'm going to share a basic configuration with you, which you can find in the description for this video. So first things first, let's deactivate this one. Easiest way to do this is you're just going to right click and then you're going to rename this file. So there's your rename. I'm going to click on that one. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add .off at the end. Now, as I press enter, you're going to get a Windows warning. Looks just like that. It's going to tell you that the file might become unusable, but that's all right. That's actually what we want. So just say yes, and voila, we are done. So now you've got your old config file didn't go anywhere, but it's no longer being used by Orthanc because, because we've just disabled it by adding that off at the end, and that off, of course, matters. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new file. So we're going to go back to our Notepad in the same way that we did before. You're going to go to Notepad, right-click, run as administrator. We're going to open it up. And we are actually going to create a new file now. Now, in a second, my notepad's going to open. There we go. And that's fine. Now, we don't want that one. So what we're going to do is, and it's actually correct. It says untitled. That's what we want. We want to create a new file. So what you're going to do here is you're going to go to File. You're going to go Save as, and in a second when my menu pops up, we are going to call it orthanc.json. Now, in order to avoid Windows saving it as a txt file, which is your standard text extension, we're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to switch to all files. That's the first thing you want to do. And then we're going to call it orthanc.json, exactly what it was before. But to avoid Windows trying to add .txt at the end, we're going to put it in quotation. So open quotes, go orthanc.json, and close it off with quotes. And then we're going to say save. And there we go. We've got a brand new orthanc.json file. Now, the next thing that you're going to do at this point, following our simplest path, you are going to use the predefined simple configuration, which I'm going to place into the description for this video. And you're basically going to just copy and paste it. Let's do it right here. All right, so as I mentioned, the full basic config is available in the description for this video. So all you're going to do is just copy and paste it right in here. So Control C and Control V, and there's your basic configuration for Orthanc. Now, what you have to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to save it. So File, Save, or Control S, whichever you prefer. And then your next step would be to restart Orthanc services, right? So when you restart the Orthanc services, it's actually going to inherit the configuration that we've just put in into this specific file. So how would you do this? Press Control Alt Delete. I find that's the easiest one, even though there's more than one way to do this. Select Task Manager. It's just on my other screen. It's going to pop up in 1 second. And what you're going to do here, let me just bring it over on this screen. So you're going to select the last section out here, which is called Services. Usually would start with Processes, but you're going to select Services, and you're just going to start typing in Orthanc, and you're going to find a service which is called Orthanc. So easy enough to figure it out. So right click on it and then say restart. So it stopped and then starting, and now it's running again. All right, let's give it a try. Let's see if this actually has taken. So there's my Orthanc. It's sitting here. We haven't done with it anything with it. Let's just reload it. So press the reload button and see what we get. And voila, there we go. So it's taken the new configuration and everything works. So that part's good. Okay, so the basic config is now in and it's being used. But as I promised, I was going to show you how to actually use the configuration file. So let's do just that. So let me bring over my notepad with the orthanc.json file open. Just maximize this and let's start looking at this wonderful file out here. So if we look at this in its entirety, before we actually explain what these Orthanc settings do, what we need to do is we need to understand what we're actually looking at. So we've already established that the name of the file is orthanc.json. So extension here is JSON. JSON is a simple text format used for configuration files. It does look a bit technical at first, but for our purposes, it's just a list of settings. Each setting has a name and a value, okay? The name tells Orthanc what setting we're changing. The value tells Orthanc what we want that setting to be. For example, in this setting name, is the actual name, coincidentally. And then the value out here is this thing right here, Orthanc-Windows-Training. So this line tells Orthanc what friendly name to use for this server. And if you look at our Orthanc out here, you can see that that's exactly what it's using, Orthanc-Windows-Training. I can easily change that, and then at that point, we would have a different name of our server. Now, as far as basic JSON rules, the big thing here are the curly brackets. So these guys right here. Uh, the whole configuration is wrapped inside these curly braces. Or they said curly brackets, curly braces. Uh, the opening brace means the start of the configuration. And then the closing brace means the end of the configuration. So it kind of limits where the actual settings are. Now, most lines follow the same pattern. First, we have the setting name in quotes. So here we go, different setting names. Usually they're human readable so that you can understand what you're actually configuring here. And they are in quotes and they start the line. Then we have a colon, always, right? So always after the name, we have a colon. And then after that, we have the value, all right? There we go. So on this side, we have the value. So name, colon, value. Now, when the value is text, it goes in quotes. Like here, for example, you can see that Orthanc-Windows-Training, we put it in quotes. All right. Or out here, Orthanc goes in quotes. When the value is a number, we do not put it in quotes usually. So here you go. There's a number, no quotes. There's a number out here. And once again, no quotes. So 4242 is the DICOM port number. Don't need to put it in quotes. HTTP port is 8042. That's how we get to this environment. Again, no need to put it in quotes. Some settings are simply on or off, and in JSON, those are written as true or false. True being on, false being off. They also do not go in quotes, as you can see on the screen. And then commas. Commas separate. And then commas, of course, separate one setting from the next. Most lines have a comma after them because another setting comes next. So just if you want to look at this, so there's a line, it's a specific setting, and then it has a comma at the end because another setting comes next, which also ends with a comma. But the last setting, however, does not need a comma after it. If orthanc does not start with this, it does not start, sorry, after editing this file, a missing comma, an extra comma, or a missing quote is one of the most common reasons. Okay, so now that we understand the basics of what's called the syntax in JSON, let's try and figure out what kind of configurations can we actually do here. So we'll go line by line so that you have an understanding of what you can actually set up. Let's start with the name. Now, name, this is the friendly name of this Orthanc server. Now, understand that this is not the DICOM AE title. It's just a display name that Orthanc uses for this instance. So, for example, if I wanted to change this, and we remember that the name obviously is going to be text, so we're going to have to put it in quotes. Let's just call it hello. Right, so I'm going to call it hello. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to save it. Now, if I go and look at my Orthanc right now, it is still obviously showing the old configuration because we haven't done anything yet. Now, in order for our Orthanc to inherit the changes, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our task manager, back to services, find that same service Orthanc as we did before by starting to type in the word Orthanc here, right click and say restart. Now we're going to watch it stop, start, and it's running again. Now let's try it out. Let's refresh it, see what we get, and there we go. Our configuration has gone in. Hello is the new config that we have out here that we've just put in. All right, so that's great. Let's keep going. Let's try to, oops, and it helps to open something useful here. And let's try to understand what other configuration can we do out here. Now, after that, we have the configuration for the storage folders. The storage directory, this configuration out here, is where Orthanc stores the DICOM data. So any type of studies, images that you upload to Orthanc obviously have to be stored somewhere, and storage directory tells the system where to find them. In this case, we're storing them under drive C in a folder called Orthanc. For a simple training setup, this is perfectly acceptable, and that's exactly what we have. Now, then we have the double slashes that have to be explained. In Windows, paths normally use backslashes, but in JSON, a single backslash has a special meaning. So when we write a Windows path inside JSON, we instead use two backslashes. That is why C orthanc becomes C two double slashes orthanc in the config file, even though that's not how it normally appears outside of JSON. Let's move down and we're going to move over to the plugins folder. Now, this folder tells Orthanc where its plugins are located. So you can see there's the path to it. Again, please note the double backslashes. The square brackets out here mean the setting can contain a list. In this beginner setup, the list only has one item, and that's the Orthanc plugin folder. Now, as we move down to these settings out here, these are the web interface settings. And obviously, as you would have imagined, they control the web interface. HTTP server enabled means Orthanc will accept browser connections. So remember that again, what are we doing out here? So we have the name here in quotes, then we have the colon, and then we have the Boolean logic value out here. So it's true. So that means it's on. Orthanc Explorer enabled, which is also true in our configuration, means the web user interface is enabled. HTTP port, you guessed it, this is the browser port 8042. So to open Orthanc, we go to localhost, which I'll show you in a second right here. Let me just get rid of this. Localhost 8042. So that is effectively the port that is defined by this specific configuration here. Now, as we move down, remote access allowed. This is remote access that is set to false. So that means it's off. That means this beginner Orthanc setup is intended to be accessed from this computer only. Now, this is safer for a training setup, but obviously, if you're using your system as a PACS, then you probably want to change this to true. Then we have authentication enabled, and that is also set to false. Now, authentication is disabled for this beginner local tutorial. And that means that Orthanc will not ask us for a username and password. This makes the first setup easier, but this is only appropriate for a local training system. If Orthanc is exposed to other computers or real network, authentication should be enabled. Now, how would we do this? Well, let's just go ahead and change this from false to true. So that's the first step right there. The next step is to actually add the users. In order to do that, what we are going to be doing here is we are going to be adding a new domain, which is called registered users. Now, what we're going to do here is we're just going to press enter to create a new line. And in brackets, we're going to put registered users. Now, this is all going to be one word. Registered users, no space. We're going to put this in quotes. Remember that the name component goes in quotes. Then we're going to put in our colon, space, and this is where the first curly brace is going to go into. So we are going to put in our first curly brace. So just like that. After that, we're going to actually put in the users themselves. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply put in the user name and then follow it up with the user password. How are we going to do this? Let's add a user admin. So let's put the username admin in quotes, close quotes, space, colon, space, and then we are going to put in the password. Again, our password is going to be text, so we're going to put it in quotations out there, and let's make it admin as well. So we're going to close this up. That is good. Now, after this, as you remember, we have to put a comma. So there goes a comma. Now we can add another user if we wanted to. We can add username user, space, colon, space, open quote, and let's give them password of user123. Just very, very simple. Um, Again, after we do that, this is the final piece of this configuration. So here we do not need a comma. Instead, we're going to just press enter, and we're going to add another curly brace right at the end of this configuration. There we go. After we're done with that, we're just simply going to add a comma as this is now complete. Okay, so that's great. Let's try out our new configuration. So we're going to go here. We're going to go ahead and save it. Now we remember that in order for this to take effect, we have to again restart our services. So let's go ahead and do that. Restart. We're going to watch this go stop, starting running. Great. So let's go ahead and reconnect to it. And there we go. So now it is asking us to actually put in the username and password. Remember how before it was off, it was set to false. Now we've set it to true, which means it's on, and we've even put in a couple of users. Let's try our admin user. Admin is the username, and admin is also the password. Sign in, and there we go. We're now able to sign in to Orthanc. So that's great right there. All right, perfect. Let's keep going and let's keep looking at our configuration here. Now, the next part right here, this is the DICOM part of Orthanc. DICOM server enabled, this first one right here, means Orthanc can receive DICOM network connections. Kind of a big deal, isn't it? DICOM AET, and in this case, of course, AET is the AE title or applications entity title. This is the AE title of this server. So Orthanc is the AE title of this Orthanc server. If you don't know what an AE title is, it is, of course, a key component in DICOM communication. This is how two DICOM devices are able to talk, if you will, to one another. They do so by calling each other by the respective names, if you will, to really simplify things. And those names are, of course, AE title. Without an AE title, two DICOM devices would not be able to communicate with another. And then after that, we have another super important DICOM component, and that's the DICOM port. In this example, Orthanc, listens on port 4242. So this is important to understand here that there are two ports that we have configured so far. 8042 is for the browser. 4242 is for DICOM. All right, and then as we move down, we have these two configurations out here. Now, these two settings make the beginner setup easier. DICOM always allow echo, this first one out here, allows another DICOM system to test connectivity with Orthanc. DICOM always allow store allows another DICOM system to send images to Orthanc. For a beginner local training setup, this avoids extra access control complexity. And then lastly, but very importantly, we have the modalities list. Now, this is the section where we would define other DICOM systems that Orthanc knows about. For example, this can be another PACS, a modality simulator, or even another Orthanc server. Right now, it is empty, but that's okay. We're starting simple. With that being said, let's see how to add a modality because this can become very important. Now, when we're adding modalities, this is the part where we have to have some understanding of DICOM. Now, in DICOM, as we've already discussed, there are certain absolutely necessary attributes that have to be present for two devices to be able to talk to each other. And what we call the golden triad is the AE title, the application entity title, the IP address, and then the DICOM port number. Now, if we were to actually try to add something, what we're going to do is we're going to add to the DICOM modalities component out here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add a fake modality. I don't actually have something real configured out here, but it will work just as good. So we have the component DICOM modalities, right? After that, you have the colon, and then you have the curly brace. And then you have the other one that indicates the end of it. So what we're going to do here is we are going to replace this empty section with a new component. So let's do just that. So we are going to then all right, so let's configure a fake modality for us. So what we're going to do here is we are going to just press enter to get a new line in place out here. And then we are going to start our configuration for this first modality. First thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a name. It's just a friendly name, something that we can know what this actually is. Let's call it CT underscore scanner. Again, remember that the value for that CT scanner friendly name goes in quotations out here. Now, after that, we're going to add a colon space, and then we are going to add a square bracket. Sorry, this one. Now, the reason why we're going to add a square bracket is because after that, we're going to list the three parameters that are necessary for DICOM connectivity. So the first one that is going to go in is going to be your AE title. So we're just going to use a fake one out here, CT scanner. That's fine. After that, we're going to put a comma and press enter. We're then going to put in the IP address of our device. Now, note that the IP address, even though it looks like a bunch of numbers, it is still treated as a string of text. So therefore, we do have to put it in quotations. Just put in some random IP address out here. That's fine. Comma. And then lastly, we're going to put in the port number, DICOM port number for this fake device. Now, because this is a number, a true number, we don't need no quote. So 104, very commonly used port. And this is the last component of this configuration. So no comma out there, enter, and then another square bracket to indicate that this is the end of this configuration. So let's go ahead and save this. Now, let's go back to our services and let's restart them. Let's go ahead and restart them. Now let's go back to our, just wait for it. So it's running. That's great. That part's good. Now let's restart this again. Okay. And now note that we have a new part or a new component on the left-hand side called DICOM modalities. And there's our little CT scanner. Now we have that spinning wheel out here because what it's doing, what it's attempting to do is it's attempting to connect to this device not real, so it's not going to be able to connect. That's why we're getting the red X out here. If we were able to connect to this, and we can do another video in which we'll connect to an actual real device, then you'd be able to browse or query retrieve, as we call it in the world of DICOM. So there we go. This is how you add modalities. Okay, and this is where I would like to stop for this very basic Orthanc configuration. Now, again, this is a clean Orthanc config. It only does the basics. Gives the server its name, as we already looked at it. It tells Orthanc where to store its data. It enables the web interface. It enables the DICOM listener. There we go. And it keeps the access local, of course, for this particular setup. Modality list, as we just looked at, this is how you would add a modality. And of course, it's probably best to add a modality that's real, not fake, like we did out here. Now that's it. You can save this file, you can restart Orthanc and test whether your server starts successfully. Thanks for watching.